the way question is been framed during the interview is like, okay, I want to run Docker into a production environment. What will be the best practices for that? Okay. And I'm, like I mentioned, it's kind of an open-ended question. So I will wait for for your guys' reply. Like, what do you guys think? What will be the best practice for running Docker in production? And that can be from the image point of view. That can be from the security point of view. How to optimize the image layer, all those things. Okay, or anything from the security point of view, from image scanning to using the different base image. What do you guys think should be the best practice of using a Docker in production? Lightweight Docker image with vulnerability scan? Absolutely. What other thing we can do? Okay, Docker layer must be limited combined with command. Absolutely. Use of official images. Okay, yes. Other thing? Okay, try to use the container orchestration rule. I'm not sure what that meaning is, but okay, let me put it over here. Root access, exactly.
That is orchestration tool, sorry, like Kubernetes and everything, because that help us to manage our container and we can manage like our application load and everything.
Okay, fair enough. Host file system, multi-stage build. Okay, anything else? Limit privilege, exactly. Okay, any last minute thing before we are going to discuss this one by one? Proper logging, yes. Multi-Docker host. I think I have got all the information, or at least I have this fair idea. So let's start one by one. Okay. So first thing is, yes, we must always use the official Docker images. Official Docker images. Okay. And I don't think so. I need to explain it to you guys, like what is the importance of the official images. So if you go, for example, I'm searching for CentOS, you will see this is the official Docker images. Okay. So main idea is security, right? So if it has been created by like a CentOS, the vendor itself, right? We have some kind of a trust on them. We can assume that there is no vulnerability they have, or somebody does not malform the images or introduce any kind of a virus or vulnerability inside the image. Okay, so this is pretty straightforward, right? We can use this CentOS official image. Okay, so that's the first step. Okay, the second tip, which nobody has mentioned, is use version. Use specific version. So by default, if you look at this Docker file, here you have mentioned something called node. Okay, let's take this example, node-18 Alpine. Okay, and anyone know what is the reason why we are, and if I specify it like this, what do you think, which image it is going to pull from the Docker hub? And let me go here and I will say node.
Latest one.
Exactly. So if I specify it like this, it is always going to pull the data sequence. And again, the same example I have given it to you. Let's say a developer who developed a specific package or specific code taking this 18-Alpine into consideration. And I mean, this is rarely going to happen, but there may be a possibility that in the latest version, they may have introduced some changes. So the same thing, the main idea behind Docker is like to bundle all the dependencies, right? So if this guy is going to create an image with a version which has been different, so in that case, there may be a possibility that your due to backward incompatibility or other reason, your changes they are going to be broken. So it's always a good idea not to use the latest tag, or specify a tag. If you do not specify the tag, it is going to pick the latest one. It is equivalent to this. Okay. So good idea, always specify the tag in your image, and especially for production, you must need to specify the tag, even here or even if you are using in the Kubernetes world. Okay, in Kubernetes world, we used to specify like image, right? So you must need to specify the tag. Okay. Third tip for using Docker in production is use the small size image. What do I mean by that? So again, let's go back here. If you look at Python, I'm just giving you an example. This can apply to any image, right? You see there's something called Alpine. Okay. So this is a small official size version of this Python image. So let me try to explain to you what do I mean by that. And I know some of you guys who is aware of this, it's too basic for you guys, but just for the sake of for everyone. So if your requirement is just to write a code in Python, right? You are not going to worry if other dependencies or other operating system thing is going to be stored on your system. So let's say there are two ways for looking into this. So again, I'm taking example, let's say Ubuntu. I have the Ubuntu operating system. And when I install an Ubuntu operating system, it comes with a lot of things, right? All the system tools, all the other things which has been present on the system. My requirement is just to run the Python code, right? So why do I need all the system dependencies and everything? System dependencies. So I can give you one really bad example. There is a service called Cups. Cups is for your running the printer. So if I need to run Python, why do I need Cups to be present in my image? And the more the packages that is present in your image, the more will be the vulnerability, right? So you need to patch up all those vulnerabilities. So Python Alpine or the Alpine version is just a slimmed down version, which has the minimal amount of package just to run what exactly you want to run it. So this can be for Node, this can be for Java, this can be from any package or a Go or anything. So the main idea behind it is to run the slimmed down version. And mostly in my code, I used to use this Python, the Alpine based images, just to make my image size as small as possible. So think of it like if you need to deploy this Docker container to hundreds of machines, the image size will be high in case of if you are going to use the full image. So I think I can show you over here also if they are still doing it. Tags. Okay, so if you look at the latest one, it has a size of like 362.83 MB. Okay, and if we look at Alpine base, I'm not seeing the Alpine one. Okay, I can show you some of the they're similar to Alpine. They've called something called Slim, and you see the size of the image is 50.89 MB. Okay, so you see that there's a major difference between them, almost like a 6 to 7 times. And only difference between that this is contain all the operating system dependencies, where the Slim is just to run what is required to run the Python code. That's it. Okay, so far we have discussed about 3 things. First, use the official image. You always specify the version and use the small image, right? Let's go to the other part. Okay, I will see if I am covering all these things. Official image, yes. Okay, we are going to discuss all these things. So next concept is called caching. Somebody already mentioned about this one. Caching. Okay, let me show you with the help of the example. So far we have doing it like, okay, let me run this again. Docker run Ubuntu and bash. I don't even need to do that. Docker and Ubuntu. Okay, And the reason this is not showing you any prompt, let me do this. Okay. Okay. So if you see here that this does not pull any image from the Docker Hub. And the reason for that, because that image is already been present in my local system. So Docker has a concept called caching. Okay. So if it knows that this image is already present on my system, it is not trying to go and pull that image for you. Okay. Now coming back to this idea that I've told you, Docker image is nothing, but it is a layer, right? We have this different layer. For each and every instruction in our file, you have a different layer. So even in this case, if let's say you make a change to this index.js, right? Docker only going to pull that particular layer. It is not going to pull all the above layer above it. So Docker knows that only in this layer you guys have introduced the change. Okay, or whoever who created that image, he only made the change to this layer. So Docker, what it is going to do, it is only going to pull that particular layer. The rest of the layer, it is not going to pull. Okay, but remember one thing: the moment you are going to make the change to this particular line, or let's say to this particular line, the rest of the layer below it is going to be invalidated. Its cache is invalidated. So even if you are not making any change to this layer, but you have made change to this layer, Docker is going to pull this one again. I mean, here it is an expose instruction, but just telling you if it need to pull something from Docker Hub or from some other location, it is going to pull that. So I know this is confusing concept, so let me show you with the help of one example. Okay, Docker caching. So first, let's say without caching. Hopefully you guys able to see it. Okay, so here I have one simple Docker file where I'm just pulling this Python Alpine image. I have this working directory. I'm copying all the files and run pip install requirement.txt and cmd this. I'm running this image. Okay, command line instruction. Looking at the Docker file and based on your experience, what do you guys think? What will be the biggest layer which will be going to be created while using this Docker file?
The copy command?
Fourth one, pip install.
Yes, Himanshu is correct. So David, it's going to be this line number 9, because here it is going to pull all the dependencies for that particular image or for particular. Let me show you for this particular module. Okay. Now the problem is, let's say here I'm copying all the code, which in this case is app.py. So basically here, second step, this is 6 lines, what I'm doing, I'm copying all this, right? This app.py into this app directory, right? Let's say I have made some changes to this app.py. Okay, I have made, so hello from Docker, hello from whatever I have done it. Okay, what I have told you that I have only made changes to this, right? But any layer below it, it's going to be invalidated after that step. So even we haven't made any changes to this, and as you guys have told me that this is going to be the biggest layer. So the cache is invalidated and Docker is again will pull all the requirement back again for this particular layer. So which is going to be unnecessary, right? Now look at the example of with caching. So what I have done is that I have put this copy instruction below, and I have in the copy stage, I'm just copying that requirement.txt over here. So in case if there's any change in the requirement.txt, only then run this layer. Otherwise, if there is no change and only this layer is invalidated, yeah, just copy it and build all the subsequent layer after that. Okay, so you guys are getting my point, because I know for sure that this layer is going to be the biggest layer. So if I'm only making the changes to my code, that app.py, there is no point of building this layer again. I know it's confusing for someone who is new to this. Any question regarding that? This is really critical to understand. And this is one of the way how you can reduce the size of your Docker image. Not just reducing the size of a Docker image, how to make your build process more efficient with Docker. This is nothing to do with reducing the size. Sorry, David, go ahead.
Yeah, Prashant. So I think is the idea to put all the steps that aren't expected to change at the front of the Docker file, whereas you keep the most likely lines where you have changes at the bottom of the Docker file to minimize the build time, right?
Exactly.
And so
Exactly.
it doesn't really matter whether that step is a large part or a small part, right? You always want to put the static steps up front and then the more dynamic ones at the back.
Yeah, actually, that's a better way to put it. Exactly. So you are correct. Whatever you think which is a dynamic, just try to put it as bottom as possible. But in some cases, for example, to run your Python application, right, you know that you need a dependency, right? So I know that if this module is not present, for example, in this case, Flask, I will not be able to run my application. So yes, you need to do some juggling, but at the same time, at the end of the day, I need to run my application, and that application has a dependency on the particular module.
Yes.
So I need to juggle my dependency, and at the same time, I want to ensure that my build process will be as smooth as possible. So yeah, that's a better way. Actually, you put it on a much better way than the way that I have put it.
And that's why you copy the requirements.txt first, just to allow the pip install step.
Yeah, exactly. So all these instructions, so basically, I don't know if you guys are aware of this one. The command to build your Docker, to build the Docker image is called something called docker build -t. And without caching, see, this is how I'm going to build it. So basically, it is not doing anything. And if you see Docker caching, it should have built the image. Yes. And if you look at Docker history, it has all the images or instruction that we have. I mean, it should have some environment and everything, which has been coming from the main image. But basically, you got the idea. Like, if you look here, okay, actually, there's something funky going on. So this is the update part, which is the biggest one. But after that, if you look at the biggest part, it is called Python install requirement.txt. So we cannot have any control over it because this is going to do the update and everything. So maybe I need to go to the better image, which is having all the dependency and everything installed. But after that, the biggest layer is this requirement.txt. So for update, I do not have any control. But after that, whatever being changed, I can have a control, and which I can do it with the help of juggling up the instructions. Okay, let's go to the next step, which I was expecting somebody will tell me. Is something called a Docker ignore. Anyone know what's the use of Docker ignore? We have spoke something related, something similar to in the Git section also. Yeah, it's similar to what we have something called a .git ignore. So let's say you have, like, I'm just giving an example. You have a C code or any Java code, right? And during the compilation process, it is creating lots of build file, not build artifact, build file, all the log file and etc., which you do not want to be the part of your Docker image, final image. So all those things you can put something inside the Docker ignore file, and those will not become the part of the image. It is similar to what we have the git ignore, where anything which we don't want to be the part of our git push, we can put it inside the git ignore file. Okay. The next thing which you guys have specified is some terms of security. Okay. Security, I do not want, like by default, if you look at the way we are running our Docker container, so not here, but I think I already have. You see that when this Docker container, right? When we are logging inside this Docker container, we are running as who am I? And if I look at this, this is exactly the root user. It's not actually the root user because, like we have discussed about it, we have a namespace, right? And namespace provides the isolation. And namespace inside this, it created, I mean, there's a namespace called PID, or there's something called user ID also. So it basically provides a user. I mean, if you do not specify any user, by default, it's going to be done as a root. Okay, it's not actual root, but it is providing you that functionality. So let me show you one thing. I know it's kind of confusing. If you look at here, this Docker container have no idea about the rest of the system. It just know that because if you remember, we run with Docker container run and bash. So bash is the first process who got the PID 1, similar to what we have discussed about the systemd or init namespace. And this guy has no idea about the rest of the world. Okay. Now, my question for you guys, is there any way we can make this Docker container aware of what is exactly running on the host? So what do I mean by that? If you look at, this is my host system, and this host system is running a bunch of like processes, right? And if you look at here, this is something we have run, right? So from host perspective, it is just one process. Like what I have told you earlier, Docker container is nothing. It's just one process for kernel, right? Again, emphasizing the point, container means one process per container. So for host process, it's just one container. And here, this container has no idea what exactly is running on the host. Okay. So let me do one thing. In this host, let me run this command. Sleep 600. Again, I will go to my Docker container and I will try to run this command. See, this guy has no idea what it is actually running on the host. Okay. Now, let me try to do something funky. Let me come out of this container. Okay. I will run the same thing. Everything will be same. Okay. And I will run something called -PID equal to host. Okay. Now, if I run the same command again, wow. Even inside a Docker container, I am seeing all the process which is running on the host. And if you remember, I have run some command called sleep, right? So let me see if I can see it over here, right? Itself. Just to make the thing worse, let me do something this. Kill -9. Wow. Even from the container itself, I am able to kill the process. Okay. And what I have done, I have run this container with something called -PID equal to host. Any one of you know what's going on here? Earlier, when I showed you, I am only able to see these two processes, a container process. But then I used only this option -PID equal to host. And all of a sudden, I am able to see what exactly is running on the host itself. How I am able to see all the process from the host all of a sudden.
Basically, it's mapped the host machine, basically PID 0. So that's why you having the entire control on the Docker.
Yeah, Mohit, that is partially correct. The thing is, it actually again have something to do with the namespace. So when I use this PID underscore equal to host, it actually maps the namespace from host to name to the container. So whatever which is been running on the host, I am now able to see it on the container itself, which as you can see, it's really dangerous. Even I'm able to kill the process on the host itself. Now, my next question is there any way to prevent this? I mean, I do not want like anyone in my company that they will be able to see all the host process. Somebody who is like really a bad actor, and even he will be able to stop the Docker process itself, and then all of my container goes down. So, anyone know, is there any way we can prevent this thing? So, my question is, we see this is really dangerous. Is there any way we can prevent this out?
Although Prashant, in the Kubernetes, we PSP use security policies to prevent these such kind of things. But in the Docker, I'm not sure. I think it should be some security around in the Docker to prevent this.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. So in Kubernetes, even what I'm doing is something called open policy agent or something called OPA. So whenever somebody is trying to boot up a container and he's trying to boot it with this kind of a privilege, there's something also called net equal to host. Net equal to host, not Jost, host. So basically, all these are a higher privilege, which means you will be able to see whatever the network you are running on the host system. So if you run the ifconfig command, it will even show you the interface of whatever you are running on the host. So what this open policy agent will do, it will check when you are trying to start the container or in Kubernetes world pod, and it will prevent even for those container to boot up. Okay. Now coming back to a Docker world, like Mohit has mentioned, and even I have not used it, there's something called App Armor, or most of you probably heard about SLAs. These are some ways through which you can prevent this one, so that no one in your company, except for the admin user, obviously, will able to run these kind of a dangerous command with net equal to host or PID equal to this one, whatever I have run it, like PID equal to host. Okay. Just two quick tips and then I will let you guys go. Seventh one, the most important one, is the scanning of the image. Okay. Anyone who is using Docker for some time, you guys probably know that Docker earlier provide like the moment you push your image, it will provide you a functionality that you can scan the image also. But now, like all the companies, they have made that feature uh, paid. They have made that feature as a paid feature. So now you cannot scan your image. Okay. I know that is somewhere you can do that. Yep. Here. Yes. So even in Docker Hub itself, you can have some kind of like an automated build. So automated build means the moment you push that code, you can trigger some kind of a build, similar to what we have in a GitHub kind of a webhooks. And I think under scanning, you see this advanced image analysis. This basic image vulnerability. And if you click on this one, so basically what it is going to do, it is Docker itself has some kind of a database. I think they're using Sync. And you can, the moment you are going to push the image to a Docker Hub, it will form this vulnerability scanning, and you will be able to see if there's any vulnerability in your image. That is now a paid version. So if you want to use this functionality, you need to upgrade. There's something called a Scout, which is a free version. So let me show you this free one through which you can scan your image. So there is my console. So let me see Docker image ls. And I can choose any of this image. So Docker Scout, and there is a flag called recommendation, and any image I can pick, let's see, Debian. So it is basically having something called a bill of material where it is having all these images stored. And again, it is going to do some kind of a like a mapping if there's any, okay, no. I want to show you one example. I don't know why that doesn't run. And then I will show you, image has no base image. Wow. Okay, while this is running, I mean, somebody has mentioned Trivi or Gripe. I don't know what the Gripe one is, but yeah, some of the companies, they are using the like a Trivi for performing the same kind of a image scanning. If you want, I can show you during the Kubernetes session. And the other thing also, if you are using the ECR, the Amazon Elastic Container Registry, they also provide the scanning. Like the moment you push your image, it is going to scan your image for the any kind of a vulnerability. Okay, so hopefully this is done. Honestly, I don't know why this is not running, but when I did the testing before this session, it was running fine earlier. So you guys can try it at your end. Just try to do some image and Docker Scout recommendation and the image name. Okay. And the final tip, as some of you guys have mentioned, something called a multi-stage build. And this is, I know this is one question which has been asked many, many times. What multi-stage build will do? Again, the same thing. The basic idea behind that is to reduce the size of the image. So let's say, I can give you an example of like a Go build, right? Or a Java. So basically, if you need to compile your Java package, you need something called JDK, right? Java Development Kit. But once your source code is compiled, you have the artifact. To run that artifact, you don't need JDK, right? And JDK is going to consume a lot of space. Okay, and again the same idea. You need to push that Docker image to like n number of containers. Okay, so again, the thing is, I can use a different image to build to build my artifact. So let's say I go with the official image and the bigger one where it comes with a JDK. And once this artifact is built, right, I can use a slimmed down version of the image just to run this artifact, which does not have the JDK. So the size of our image is smaller. So let me show you with the help of an example. Without, or let me show you this multi-stage build so it will be much clearer to you. So here you can see I used a big image called Golang 1.8, 1.7 as a builder to build the artifact. Okay, here I am running this run go build -o to create this artifact called my app. Once the artifact is built, what I'm using is the Alpine image, which is the much more slimmer down version. And just what I'm doing, this in this stage, I'm copying it from this builder, right? Whatever the artifact that is built to my workspace, which is here, and then running the CMD. So in this way, I will be able to reduce the size of the image. The final image that is being created is with this Alpine 1.3.14. Whereas in this case, what it is, this will not be a part of the image. The image which is I am going to push to a Docker Hub or to any other registry will be using this one. So this is the advantage of multi-stage build. Okay. So these are some of the recommendations. This has been asked a lot of time during the interview. Always use the Docker official Docker image. You will see that tag when you go to the Docker repository. Always use the specific version so you don't have any surprises. Use small size image like Alpine based image. Use of caching. As a developer, you know, like which image is going to be modified or which layer is going to be modified more. So always try to put it as below, and anything which is static, try to put it above, so that you will always have a the cache hit versus the cache miss. If you don't want any images, anything which has been a part of your image, try to put it inside the Docker ignore. Security, don't try to run the your Docker container as a root user. Try to isolate it with some specific user. And there's a flag called user. This I think I forget to tell you guys. I want to show you one thing. Okay, so it's not coming up. So what you can do inside your Docker file. So let's say I want this Docker file when it is being built, run with the Prashant user. Okay, so rather than running as root, when it is going to execute this command or going to start your application, it will be run as a user Prashant, not as a user root. And obviously, in case if this user is not present, you need to do these extra steps. For example, user at Prashant and all those things. Okay, so this is one way you can prevent it to be running as a root user. Okay. The other thing we have discussed is like scanning of the images. Most of the time, all these solutions, they already, for example, Elastic Container Registry for Amazon, they provide you a scanning solution. Like when you're pushing your image, it is always going to scan the images for you. And finally, the important one is the Docker build, Docker multi-stage build, which will help you to reduce the size of the image.